The first of three televised U.S. presidential election debates is now over, with Barack Obama and Mitt Romney facing off before hundreds of millions of viewers. The themes today were jobs, taxes and healthcare, all close to the hearts of Americans in stagnant economic times. And for more on what was said, let's cross to RT's Governor Romney. Hello there. So you heard it. What are your thoughts on the debate?
Hello to you, Yulia. Well, the debate focused on domestic issues, mainly the economy. There was a lot of back and forth about who's going to be paying for what and how. They both gave different numbers, citing different studies. At some point, it got kind of confusing. But in general, it looked as if one was saying he wants to raise taxes, and the other one would go, no, he wants to raise taxes, or we need regulation, and the other one would say, I agree. So in the context of this debate, they agreed on a lot of things. But the devil is in the details, of course. But as they tried to give details and numbers, it got even more confusing. But in general, my general impression was that Romney, as a former CEO, was kind of better at juggling the business talk. He actually did better than many thought he would, almost exclusively because the recovery under President Obama has been slow. The country is running a huge deficit, gigantic debt, more than $16 trillion. That's 104% of the nation's GDP. But President Obama's main argument was that Mr. Romney wants to go back to the same policies that landed the U.S., well, and the world for that matter, into the economic mess 4 years ago that everybody is still struggling to recover from.
All right, and tell us more. Any guess as to who came out on top then?
Well, as far as polls, for now, in most states, President Obama is leading in polls, although by a small margin. They're pretty much neck to neck in most polls. But it's important to mention, essentially to our non-American audience, that in the U.S., a candidate might win the majority of the popular vote and still lose the election, because it's not the popular vote. It's the so-called electoral college that decides the outcome of the presidential election here. Every state gives a candidate a certain number of points, and the winner has to collect this magic number of 270 points. So even if a candidate loses a state by, say, just 3 votes, they get 0 points. That way, it's a very peculiar electoral system, which is not really about the will of the majority. So not only are the Americans stuck with just 2 choices, because it's essentially a 2-horse race system, but also they're not guaranteed to get the president that the majority of American voters have cast their votes for. One more thing, almost half of Americans, it turns out, identify themselves as independents. One of the polls said 40% supporting neither of the candidates. The fact is that there are other candidates in this presidential election, but they've been pushed out of these major debates. So very few know anything about them. They're not even on ballots in all states, because different states have different requirements, essentially designed to keep it a 2-horse race. Now, how democratic is that? That's a discussion that very few people in America want to have now.
Indeed. RT's Governor Romney reporting there live. Governor, thank you very much. And let's get more reaction on the debate with Kevin Zies, director of the Center of the Come Home America group, I should say. Mr. Zies, hello there. So it was mentioned in the debate that Mitt Romney wants to increase U.S. military spending by $2 trillion. So is that necessary, do you think?
No, I think the opposite. We should be moving in the direction of cutting our military budget, which is $1 trillion a year. It's as much as the whole world combined spends on the military. So we can't have the kind of economy, military spending that Romney's talking about and have a successful economy at home. But I think on a broader point, this debate showed the American people will not get solutions to the problems we face from either of these parties. When it came to jobs, neither one of them talked about really creating jobs. They put forward no programs that would create jobs. We know what job creation is. We've seen it happen before. In the Depression, FDR created all sorts of jobs. You had the fastest drop in unemployment. None of them talked about that. Nobody talked about regulating the derivative market, which is bigger than the whole world economy. It's an unregulated mess that could collapse the economy even further. No one talked about breaking up the big banks. And when it came to health care, it was just misstatement after misstatement. Romney claiming we get the best health care outcomes in the world, when in fact the World Health Organization says we're 37th in the world in health outcomes. We have 100,000 deaths that would be prevented every year if we had a health care program like any of the top 3 in the world. And yet we don't have that. No one discussed a single-payer health care system. So this debate showed how out of touch the two candidates are with the American people and with meeting the needs and the necessities necessities of the American people.
Yeah, and on the other hand, Obama says he wants to trim defense expenditure. Do you see that happening? Because his opponent says any reduction to military spending would compromise America's national security.
The military-industrial complex is one of those major corporate interests that Obama serves very well. He increased weapons sales from about $26 billion a year to over $70 billion a year. He's a tremendous arms dealer. He increased the military budget every year he's been in office to a record after a record. He increased the intelligence budget every year he's been in office to record after record. Same with the Homeland Security budget. So that's not Obama's history. And I think that was probably the problem for Obama tonight, by the way. He was stuck in his record. He couldn't, unlike Romney, who could make all sorts of promises and create images and fantasies of what he's going to do to create jobs and save the country. Obama's stuck in a record. And he can't just say he's going to do things because he hasn't done them. And so I think that put Obama at a disadvantage tonight.
What wasn't brought up in this debate was foreign policy. How different are the candidates' views in that regard?
Well, that'll be one of the next debates that we have with these two candidates, but they're not very different at all. President Obama has been the drone commander-in-chief. He's killed more people with drones than we could ever imagine George Bush have done. He started wars in a country like Libya, where there was no UN mandate, no congressional approval. He just did it on his own. He escalated Afghanistan. Romney would do the same things. They're both taking nothing off the table as far as attacking Iran. They both see Russia as an enemy. Obama's encircled them. Obama's also encircled China. And he's also increased the military presence of the United States in Africa through AFRICOM. So on all these military issues, they're both aggressive supporters of the U.S. military empire. And I don't see either one of them cutting back the military in any significant way.
Kevin Zee is director of the Come Home America Group. Thank you very much.